having a good grasp of the kind of foundational metrics and measures of success in business and how your work contributes to that is incredibly valuable. And in addition to that, being able to craft a good message and kind of get to the heart of what a business is, what they're trying to say, and really thinking through where you apply that message. So again, it comes back to that kind of quantitative understanding the business relevance and the profit piece of what businesses are trying to achieve, and how you can contribute to that with your efforts, and then having a really strong grasp of the qualitative as well, and of language, and it's kind of left brain, right brain combined. And so I think the more you can be that dual motor professional, the more valuable you will be to an organization, and attractive as a candidate within interview processes. So I got started down this path, I think really as a child. I was very interested in environmental concerns. I've always been, intrigued by the natural world, concerned about humans' relationship with it, and in college studied in environmental science and decided to focus within that degree on environmental communications. So taking the technical and being able to translate it for broader audiences, realizing that so much of what we struggle with is not so much the science and the ways that we understand nature, but the things that we do with that information. And so persuading human communities and individuals to take certain actions and to understand their relationship with the natural world is really where the work lies. I also really enjoy writing and language, so felt like it was a natural fit, both for what I felt would have an impact and also where my natural skills lay. I did a master's degree in communications, so a sort of an undergraduate training in science and social science related to the environment, and then did a master's degree in rhetoric and communication, and continued my ability to really understand the qualitative and quantitative research elements of communications. So that master's was really, it was a training in how to work with data, and how to understand what was happening in human interactions and communications, individually and personally, and then, on kind of a mass communications level and scale. I ended up working in solar energy, came to the Bay Area and worked for a in part female-founded company called Sunrun, and worked there for about 4 years and applied my skills in marketing first, then in public policy. And it was really in the public policy arena that I started to focus more on communications and motivating people for particular voting ends and particular kind of advocacy outcomes. I then worked for a PR agency. I wanted to go deeper into the communications piece and really learn more about that practice. I had a mentor who in social media, as well as relationships with the press and media relations, to get messages out about clean energy in particular, and kind of followed her lead on that, and became, I think, a better practitioner, having sort of the theoretical underpinnings from my education. And from there, I've been able to incorporate communications into marketing teams, and into policy work. So I've been able to kind of weave those pieces together to my current role, where I oversee marketing, communications, and public policy for GF Energy. GF Energy is part of the largest roofing company in the world, roofing and waterproofing company, Standard Industries. And then we're sister company to GAF, the largest roofing and waterproofing manufacturer in North America. So these giant building materials and industrial companies have started to really transition to think about sustainability, social impact, and those types of things. And so in 2019, Standard founded GAF Energy to push for energy from every roof. and to transform kind of standard roofing into solar roofing. So every time somebody gets a new roof, they consider getting a solar roof. And eventually that becomes just sort of standard issue and standard practice. And we deploy more clean energy to millions upon millions of rooftops. There's wonderful energy at GAF Energy. When I started the company, I think we were about 12 people. This was in 2019. Now we're approaching 400 employees 4 years later. And it's fascinating being kind of an entrepreneurial effort within this larger conglomerate. We are able to leverage the established brand equity, communications might, as well as supply chain and other business elements of the larger, more established companies. So we sort of stand on the shoulders of giants, of industrial giants, and it gives us a leg up. And I think that's most pronounced within our go-to-market plan, where we tap into the 6,000 roofing contractors that are GAF certified and work with GAF and have known GAF for decades. And we are able to work with them to introduce our solar roof, the Timberline solar product, into the market. And we want them, as a normal course of business, to talk about solar roofing when they're going out to do, a re-roof pitch. So it's, and my team within GAF Energy is, I think we're really strategic about our go-to-market investments. As a channel business, we rely really heavily on the roofers to carry our message forward, and to generate business and originate customers, do the sales, and then, do a portion of the installation. It's a slight nuance, but we have a services business too. If you're looking at the life cycle of the customer, where the touch points are and who's doing what, we actually handle the design of the solar portion of the roof, and the permitting process, as well as the final electrification. We have the services team that sort of complements the core functions of the roofing business to be able to make the roofers solar providers without them having to make those investments themselves. So we've got the product and the services element. So we sell the hardware with the roofers, through the roofers to the homeowner, and then also help them, make the roof a solar roof, and ultimately electrify it and connect it to the grid. So, we have made investments in brand, and really have been very thoughtful about how we build on the GAF brand, which is venerable. Speaking of data-driven choices, and their domain authority on Google is incredible, right? So we're able to kind of draft off of that, and get good kind of economies of scale when you think about their reach, and how we can tap into that, for search engine optimization and paid search and that kind of thing, more on the marketing side as opposed to communications, but interrelated. And, I think that we've done a really solid job of moving with that foundation, but then beyond it and kind of pushing the envelope a bit. And, I think on the communications side, we've been able to embody a kind of a lean structure, right? Where we have a few heads in-house. They're people who are helping to do the work and carry things forward internally. But then we really maximize those efforts through external agencies and resources that we bring in, which is, I think, a great approach to building marketing and communications teams, especially within startups that are, trying to figure out exactly what the needs are. And we've been really fortunate to work with very talented external parties. Shout out to Sam Boykin and Boykin Industries, who is one of our main PR leads externally, and has just done an incredible job for us. And I hope maybe this brings him some business, but he better keep working with us because we love being partners with him. Most recently was the launch of Timberline Solar. I really did it. It was me, and when it came down to it, one other woman on the team internally. And, again, we had the external agencies to rely on, and some other resources within the family of companies. But I am so proud of what we were able to accomplish in such a cost-effective way. Um, and with, it's so much about how compelling the story was, in addition to the tireless hard work of reaching the right people at the right time, crafting the right message, and just continuing to think about how we translated the core of what we were trying to say, through all of the different channels that we had access to. And we launched at the Consumer Electronics Show in January of this year, and the response was overwhelming. We got pieces in Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal and Fast Company. I think we reached over 3 billion people. We won Best of Innovation in Smart Cities. I remember working on that application until midnight with my boss, right? It was just, it was roll up your sleeves and get this done. And that's one of the things I really love about startups. So there's so much potential, and you're just like, well, let's try it. We believe in this. Let's see if other people believe in it. And man, it turns out they really did. And, I think at this point we've won 22 awards. We just this week, Popular Science named us one of the 100 greatest innovations of 2022. We won Time Best Inventions of 2022, as well as Fast Company World Changing Ideas in the energy category. We really captured people's imagination, and it's that combination of having an incredible product, a great business model, being part of this amazingly powerful, well capitalized, thoughtful, industrial company, and really just, I think we believe so deeply in what we were doing, and you have to match all of those kind of core business elements with a communications and marketing team that can really get it done. And my colleague Alana Helland was an amazing partner in all of that. We were the core team that carried that forward. And I think that there's this misperception sometimes, especially in like R&D and technically led organizations, that like if you build it, they will come. And I think that you have to have a powerful product. You have to have something that is going to transform the industry and change the game, right? And having the world's first nailable solar shingle, a solar roof that installs just like a regular roof and can work with the existing roofing channel that exists in the US, and eventually we have our sights on global expansion. But it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. Like, you have to put in the time, the strategy, the creativity, and the muscle to be able to get that story out into the world, and in front of the right audiences. And that takes a lot of skill, and it takes a lot of effort. And you start with something that is incredibly meaningful, and people can just get there. You want it to be so simple, like, oh yeah, it's a roof, but it has solar. Cool, yeah, of course. Like, when I get a new roof, it's gonna be a solar roof. It's gonna look great. It's gonna protect my house in the same way. Why not? Why wouldn't you do that? That's what people say to me all the time. And like, that's gold. But you have to then translate that into campaigns, into media pitches, into top of funnel paid search ads, into out of home, into event activations, in order to get the response that you need, and award applications. And it takes a lot of work, and a lot of grit, and I think a lot of skill that is often kind of happening behind the scenes and is more hidden. And everyone's like, oh, it's a great product, everybody wants to talk about it. It's like, no, we helped them a little bit talk about it or a lot. So the first time that the data saved the day for me, I was an intern with someone who would later become a continued mentor of mine. And I remember sitting at the table with our CEO. She was the head of marketing and communications at this solar startup called One Block Off the Grid. And it was the head of sales. There were a number of people gathered around the table, leaders in the company. And everybody had an opinion, right? Like, we should do this on the website, we should do this, we should say this, we should, I think. And she just kind of got this look on her face, this like grin, and she was like, let's test it. Let's see what actually, A/B test. Okay, I hear all of you. Let's see what works. And it was such an aha moment for me, right? Because so much of the work that we do is subjective. And so being able to have a mechanism to get the data and the feedback from the right users, the right target audience, is really transformative. Turns out her idea won. I think she probably knew that was going to be the case, but she then had the data to back it up. And so rather than it being kind of an ego battle, it was, you looked at the numbers, you looked at the performance, you looked at the conversion and the business results that came out of that. And so for me, that was the first time that I really internalized and was able to see the power of reliable and impactful data. From the communication side, for us, the most important metric it's really audience reach at this point, because it's such an awareness play. And so, I remember during our Timberline Solar launch, when we talked about the billions of people we were reaching, that had a clear effect on the rest of our leadership team. They were sort of teasingly calling me Trace Commas, like when you get $1 billion in a startup, you got your part of the Trace Commas club. So I became part of the Trace Commas communication club, right? And so it was a way for them to really understand what the the benefit of the comms efforts were around launch, because it was quantified. So we continue to track those metrics. I think, you can't disregard the qualitative data too, in addition to the quantitative. I always like to triangulate between those two. And I think on the comms front, more qualitatively, we kind of have this gut feeling about certain publications. And yes, they have greater reach. But not everything can be summarized within, an arithmetic formula of how many people are reading your stories, or you have exposure to your message. There's something about the Wall Street Journal, there's something about Bloomberg, there's something about the Washington Post that just qualitatively means something to different communities. And not to get too grandiose about it, but to American democracy too. And so we do have metrics about tier 1 media and the targets that we have for getting stories in tier 1 media. In addition to reach, we also have a metric that, within a lot of PR software, this is something that is offered, where you can translate the reach into equivalent advertising dollars. Now, I think there's some question. I don't want to get too much into the debate of the validity of that and like what it actually means. But within our launch, the number was, I think, almost 30 million in equivalent advertising dollars, as far as the earned media value. And that's something that, people take notice of. I think, especially in a channel business, that can be hard to then translate that into direct sales, right? But again, it goes back to the qualitative, that you're building credibility, that we have, especially the roofing audience, if they've heard about us in all these different ways, and we built all of this momentum and all of this excitement about the product, they want a piece of that action, right? Like we have had to have so many hard conversations with roofing contractors in the US about, we're not in your state yet, we're not in your region yet, we will be there. We've had people, like almost like virtually show up at on our president's doorstep, being like heads of roofing companies being like, please, I want to sell this solar roof. And, and our head of sales is like, you ruined my January because I got so many phone calls about this product. Like, thanks a lot, tongue in cheek and being some humor around that. But those are the things, like those moments, I think, are really important input and data points too, about how people are responding, and key, again, target audiences are responding to the messages that you put out in the world. I was really satisfied to hear that, because we want to be the it thing within the roofing industry. And I think to some degree this year we've really achieved that. I think something that, and I've seen this done well to some degree, but so much of what our jobs are explaining what we're doing internally and kind of getting the buy-in for marketing and communications among management, leadership, peers, other people in the organization. I think a really straightforward, I don't say dashboard, but like a user interface that my boss can understand and that is like real time, and that is like, I don't want to say dead simple. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, but he's doing so much at any given moment where like if he can just click on a link and be like, oh, here's like to see the performance of our PR efforts as far as audience size over time, right? And that like it doesn't require a special login. It doesn't require, translation and being able to, or having to really work with a spreadsheet or with the data itself, or like sit down and have a conversation about it, right? That like something that is simple and elegant and real time that you can share with a variety of different people within an organization. That to me is something that it just feels like we don't completely have that, and it's a pulling together of all these different things. Or, I really wish there was sort of one central reporting UI to rule them all. Now I understand that like the systems are fragmented and you have to have logins in order to be able to monetize the software and that kind of thing. But if it were possible to just be able to have that data translated into something that is accessible, understandable at an executive level, or I could share with an R&D engineer who isn't steeped in the work that we do, would really love to see that, and would make our lives a lot easier. Yeah, within clean energy and climate tech, I think PR and comms is going to continue to be really important and help people understand what the energy transition looks like, what the implications are for climate shifts that we're going to experience in the coming years and decades. I think clean energy is still a new technology, and so people are going to want to get more information and things that are digestible, understandable. I think solar roofing specifically, it's easy to understand, and that's part of the beauty of it. And I think we just need to continue to reinforce how straightforward it is to get a solar roof when you need to re-roof your house, and repeating that message hundreds of thousands, millions of times, and finding ever more compelling ways to talk about energy from every roof. And the next 2 to 3 years for PR and comms, I think the, frankly, ability to use data and to make the case for the function in the language of business, as far as revenue and margin and those types of things, and really understanding the connection to the business financials is really important. So having a good grasp of the kind of foundational metrics and measures of success in business and how your work contributes to that is incredibly valuable. And in addition to that, being able to craft a good message and kind of get to the heart of what a business is, what they're trying to say, and really thinking through where you apply that message. So again, it comes back to that kind of quantitative understanding the business relevance and the profit piece of what businesses are trying to achieve, and how you can contribute to that with your efforts, and then having a really strong grasp of the qualitative as well, and of language, and it's kind of left brain, right brain combined. And so I think the more you can be that dual motor professional, the more valuable you will be to an organization, and attractive as a candidate within interview processes. I think in order to embrace data, just doing it, I think about, the Nike slogan. I know it's not always that easy, but you know, diving in and knowing that you might not understand it at first. So you have to have a growth mindset. I think a lot of PR professionals disproportionately sort of think of themselves as like not math people or, you know, not data people. And I went into comms because I like human relationships, I like human psychology, I like words, I like the qualitative side of things. I don't want to have to deal with the numbers. And I think interrogating that and being like, okay, but you know how to order a cup of coffee, you know how to basically calculate a bill at dinner. Like you extrapolate from there. Like we all use math every day. Like it's not, you can't really get by without some. And we now carry calculators around with us everywhere we go too. So like we use the computer too to be able to, you don't have to do mental math. And business math at the end of the day, like I don't know where those narratives come from about not being good at math, right? But it's not really advanced statistics. It's not calculus. I mean, I've taken all of those classes, right? They're fascinating, they're great, but that's not what you use on a daily basis within the, with some exceptions, within the business realm. Like it's basic multiplications, and division, addition, and subtraction, and some statistics to some degree. So there are things that are accessible, and they're tools that you can use to get there. And I think if you think about the math piece of things and the quantitative piece of things as also being a story, right? I cite, it's a quote attributed to Mark Twain, who knows who actually said it, but it's like their lies, pardon my French, damn lies and statistics, right? That like it's still a human product and it's still a narrative that we're working with, even though they are numbers and they seem to be less, less easy to manipulate. But I think if you can find the story within the data, because we are ultimately storytellers, that can be a way to make it a little bit more, or like demystify it a bit. And I think finding mentors, like communicators who know how to use data and can, demonstrate, like the moment I had with my mentor, Shannon Coulter, way back in the day, that the numbers can help you persuade, which is also ultimately what we are trying to do, and make us more effective at our jobs, and can be fun and can really help to bolster your position within what you're working to accomplish for a particular cause or organization.